So, what should we know about a woman's prerogative?
Yeah, so this story is set in Tennessee. It takes place in 1920 during a really pivotal moment in US history. So, in the US history, to get the 19th Amendment into the Constitution, they needed one more state to ratify it, to approve it, all of that. So, Tennessee was that state that the suffragists were there. They were trying to make that happen. So, the story actually takes place there, but it's between a speakeasy owner, Cecilia Green, and a kind of wounded war hero. He's come back from the Great War a couple years ago. His name is Donovan Lee. He's a little withdrawn. He's had a lot of stuff happen to him. So they kind of meet and sparks fly. Afterwards, they find out they kind of have different thoughts on what they should do with their lives. So they're trying to work that out while she's part of this movement, those types of things. So I'm really excited because this is the first time I've written in this time period. So it's been a lot of fun. But this actual piece I'll read is the second chapter, and it's where they actually first see each other, the first time they meet.
Love it. All right, well, take it away whenever you're ready.
Again, all the people having a good time at her club. She was proud of what she'd done with the Red Fox. Before Prohibition, she'd been making ends meet with the general store her husband left her, but now she was one of the wealthiest club owners in the city. She'd only been at it for about 8 months, but had no plans to slow down. The general store still operated, but with the correct password, customers were transported to a world of decadence in the basement. She converted the area into an elegant speakeasy and even hired someone to create better air circulation. It was truly a marvel. She was just starting to rival some of the larger clubs. A peppy jazz song started, and several men and women headed to the dance floor. She looked over at her bartender, Ben, and grinned. How can anyone say this is wrong? He laughed over the music. It isn't the party that the teetotalers have issues with, but the booze. She knew that and understood it was a real issue, but wasn't sure prohibition solved any of those problems. In some situations, it made alcohol more appealing. We received a case of champagne, the good stuff, Ben said, shifting the conversation to their inventory of illegal beverages. Cecilia nodded, happy about that. Sometimes the drinks were rot and sometimes they were perfect. It depended on what was available. Jean, one of her waitresses, grinned at her, pointing at a glass bowl she was carrying. We have lots of takers from the men in the room who want to share a drink with you. Every night, Cecilia hosted a raffle to raise money for the suffragist movement, and specifically the marches they had planned. Some nights it was a few drinks, other nights it was a date at one of the tables with a customer's favorite waitress, and tonight someone would have a drink with her at the bar. They hadn't done that one yet, but she figured it was only fair. She grabbed the bowl filled with money and slips of paper containing the names of customers who had signed up. After this song, I will make a personal plea. They will be jumping out of their seats, Jean stated. Cecilia rolled her eyes, yet Jean was telling the truth. Men seemed fascinated by a woman who ran her own club. Unfortunately for them, any relationships or liaisons she partook in were usually started outside of the club. Not always, but most of the time. She swayed to the music and studied the crowd. A larger group was escorted to the tables in the back. One of the older men grabbed her attention. He had broad shoulders and brown hair with graying at the temples. He moved as if he were in charge of everything around him. She'd seen him somewhere before. Ben, who is that? Her bartender looked over. He knew everyone. His eyes widened. That is Donovan Lee and Arnold Dubrow. They own the most successful lumber company in Tennessee. You've made it, boss, if they're visiting your club. Pride surged in her, yet it wasn't his wealth that fascinated her. It was his bearing. He carried himself as if he was unimpressed or even uninterested with the world around him. But Cecilia suspected it was all for show and more smoldered beneath the surface. He glanced her way, and ice blue eyes connected with her brown ones. His gaze dipped down briefly and perused her. She smirked, curious about what he was thinking. He finally looked away. A younger woman, younger than her, but probably in her early 20s, beamed at him and requested that he sit next to her. Who is she? She asked Ben. Ben studied her. I'm not positive, but Lee has a daughter and a son. She could be his daughter. The music stopped and Cecilia grabbed the bowl, making her way to the where the band played. She grinned at the crowd, her gaze darted to Lee again. He leaned back in his chair. his hands folded across his flat stomach. Their eyes connected once more. Something flared in his, and he ran his tongue along his bottom lip. The movement caused heat to flare between her thighs, startling her. Cecilia didn't usually have such strong, instant reactions to people. She winked at him saucily and then turned away, addressing the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to share a drink with me at the bar? Several people hooted and hollered. She grinned. Cecilia wasn't a classic beauty, but she knew men found her appealing. Tonight, she wore a shimmery red dress that fell above her calves, and her black hair was styled in a flirty, wavy bob. Drop your name and money in this glass bowl as I walk around. The winner will be announced in an hour. I can't wait to spend time with you. Cecilia weaved her way through the room, waiting to approach Lee's table. Something about him unsettled her. Unsettled probably wasn't the right word. He made her want things. As she approached his table, the other older man and two younger men sat up. The younger woman smiled at her excitedly. Lee's expression and relaxed pose remained the same, as if he was unaffected by her. Still, his eyes gave him away. The ice blue color in them darkened as he watched her. She swallowed, finding herself flustered and equally annoyed by her reaction. She held out the bowl and watched as each person except him dropped money and papers into the glass container. Cecilia didn't push him, yet she turned and beamed at the other man. In a breathless voice said, I hope it is you, mister. And the man blushed and provided his name, Arnold Dubrow. She winked at him, and her gaze darted to Lee. He clenched his jaw. Did her flirting annoy him? More shockingly, why did Cecilia want it to? Not wanting to ponder him or reveal how much he affected her, Cecilia spun around and moved on to the next table. She couldn't deny he fascinated her. She glanced in the bowl and saw someone had written his name on one of the papers. Cecilia smirked. Someone else wanted them to meet. Donovan sipped his drink while he watched those around him dancing and celebrating. He had no idea what they were all so happy about, but there was definitely a heightened level of giddiness in the dimly lit speakeasy. His gaze darted to the younger woman sitting at the bar. She crossed her legs, laughing with her staff. Meredith had informed him that she was the sole owner of the establishment. His daughter said it with awe in her voice. He wasn't surprised. She had read every suffrage pamphlet and made an effort to attend most rallies. The independence of women was her mantra. It was a much discussed cause because Tennessee was one of the few states that still had time to cast a yea or nay vote in favor of the 19th Amendment. Still, the vote in his home state wasn't guaranteed for the suffragist. He suspected the majority of men and women in Tennessee were not in favor of supporting it. Donovan honestly saw the suffragists' points, but he also didn't understand the passion that swirled around the movement. Truthfully, that was his reaction to any cause. Since returning from the Great War, he was numb, only letting his emotions out when he went to the park and fed the damn ducks. Then it was all anger. Her glittery dress slid further up her leg, revealing a flash of her thigh. A bolt of lust coursed through him. He picked up his drink and took a large sip before he muttered, Christ. A large smile stretched across her face as she talked to her bartender. Her hands moved in an animated fashion. Watching her, he was exhausted and enticed. She winked at him earlier, startling him. Donovan was not the type of man women winked at. You had been once, his mind reminded him. Annoyance flared in him, but he kept his face impassive. She glanced over at him, their eyes collided, and sparks flared and snapped in the space between them. He'd bedded two women in the last 6 months. Both times his body hadn't felt anything close to what he was feeling now. Donovan wasn't looking for anything passionate or complicated. Good, uncomplicated sex was enough. He was always considerate, but never affectionate. She would be different, he suspected. Something about her set off alarm bells in him. He turned away and saw Meredith watching him. She's beautiful, isn't she? Donovan nodded at his daughter. Yes, also young. One of the papers did a story on her. Not the club, obviously, but the success of her store. It mentioned she was 28. That isn't so young. He tugged at the collar of his shirt. She was 14 years younger than he was. Meredith whispered, I put your name in her glass bowl. Donovan frowned at her. Why? She shrugged. You seem to like her. You are turning into your grandmother. Mama wanted you to not be sad, his daughter said quietly. Julia was a saint, but he wished she wouldn't have worried about his happiness during her last days. In fact, it made him angry, but like everything else, he kept it buried deep down. His wife had been gone for almost 2 years, and everyone wanted him to move on. Donovan would when he was damn well ready. Still, he forced a smile. We'll see who wins. She giggled. Albert flopped down in a chair at their table. His 21-year-old son barely glanced at him. It had been that way since they both returned from Europe. He'd buried one son and caused another one to hate him. Donovan hadn't been shocked that he'd agreed to come out. Meredith, always the peacemaker, said, "Albert, did you enter the raffle?" His head no. Another upbeat song kicked off, and Arnold's sons grabbed ladies to take on the dance floor. Albert sat with his arms folded. Several ladies glanced his way, hoping to dance, but he stayed seated. Meredith was having none of it. She jumped up and held out her arms to her brother. "Albert, I will be mortified if you refuse to dance with me, your sister. Don't be rude." A small smile lit his son's face. Donovan swallowed hard, feeling emotions he didn't want to show, trying to escape. Meredith was so much like Julia, kind and good. They joined Arnold's sons. Albert finally smiled, and Donovan found the corners of his mouth tilting up as he watched them. "This is a good idea," Arnold said. He nodded. Clara had been right. Getting out was good for all of them. Darnold clapped Arnold on the back. "Thanks for asking. We deserve to be happy. You, Donovan, deserve that." There was that word again. He hated it, but he didn't share that. Arnold was only trying to help. The man was his best friend and business partner. He'd been a widower even before the Great War. "You do too, Arnold." He blushed. "I think I met a lady." His brows shot up in surprise. Arnold had female friends, but never anyone serious. His friend added, "Someone I want to marry." "Do your sons know?" He smiled. "They support it." Donovan was happy for him. "That's good. I put your name in the glass bowl." That was the second person. He sighed. "I'm fine." His friend grinned at him. "She winked at you, and my normally expressionless friend seemed to like her." "I don't know her." Arnold shrugged. "Well, you might get your chance tonight." He only shook his head and went back to watching his children happily dancing. Donovan was content watching them live life to the fullest. Still, he found himself glancing over at the club owner. She was reviewing paperwork, and her flirtatious expression was now serious. Curiosity flowed through him. Donovan clenched his jaw. He didn't like his fascination with her, not one damn bit. And that's the end of chapter 2.